they showed that PEEP modulates the degree of tidal recruitment that you see in a patient who's spontaneously breathing. These are dynamic CT images. The images on the left are acquired at end expiration. The images on the right are acquired at end inspiration. The images at the top were obtained during the application of high PEEP, and the images at the bottom with the application of low PEEP. And what you can see, first of all, looking at the bottom two images, is that there's significant lung collapse, but as the image goes from end expiration to end inspiration, there's significant tidal recruitment. Whereas with the application of higher PEEP, that tidal recruitment is avoided because the lung is well recruited in the end expiratory conditions. So this suggests that higher PEEP can avoid the tidal recruitment that's associated with acute hypoxemic respiratory failure and spontaneous breathing. Now, tidal recruitment and spontaneous breathing are especially important in this context because the inspiratory effort results in a heterogeneous distribution of transpulmonary pressure. And this is an extremely important concept to grasp. When the diaphragm is activated in the context of spontaneous breathing, because the injured lung loses its normal fluid-like inflation properties, it behaves in some respects more like a solid, and therefore the pressures generated throughout the lung vary widely. And this was demonstrated convincingly again by Tedeschi in an earlier paper and again in this paper, where they used electrical impedance tomography to image where ventilation is going during the early phase of inspiration. So if you look at the first column of EIT tracings here on the left, these images were collected during spontaneous breathing and then subsequent paralysis, both at low PEEP. And what's important to see here is that in the dorsal lung regions, there's a significant early rise in lung impedance, implying an increase in volume in that region, and a significant early decrease in impedance in the ventral lung regions, which suggests that the gas is actually shifting from this region to this region as so-called pendulift. And you can only get pendulift when you've got this maldistribution of transpulmonary pressures. Now, to grasp the significance of this pendulift, when you paralyze the animal, what you see is a significant decrease in dorsal lung ventilation, which implies that this condition here is associated with significant overdistension in that region. So you have local volume trauma as a consequence of the spontaneous breathing. Now, these recordings, as I said, were collected under low PEEP. What happens whenever you apply high PEEP? So again, you have the spontaneous breathing condition and this paralyzed condition. And what you see this time is, again, a significant early rise in lung impedance in the dorsal lung region and a small decrease in impedance in the ventral lung region, suggesting that there is still some pendulift going on. But it's greatly attenuated because now when you paralyze the animal, you see that the dorsal lung inflation is the same between spontaneous and paralyzed conditions. So the application of PEEP greatly relieves the degree of local volume trauma that's occurring as a consequence of spontaneous breathing. You can also see on the EIT images that you've got a much more homogeneous distribution of ventilation under both conditions. So this suggests that you can use high PEEP in spontaneously breathing patients to mitigate some of the features of lung injury that are specific to spontaneous breathing. Now, I'm very interested in diaphragm injury under mechanical ventilation, and I think there's reason to be concerned about the idea that the diaphragm can be injured as a consequence of its post-inspiratory activity. That is, during expiration, when your lung volume is decreasing, the patient is exhaling, but the diaphragm remains active in order to prevent atelectasis from developing. And I think this was demonstrated convincingly and very elegantly last year by Cora and Ted and Stierna's group. What they did was they conducted this experiment where they applied varying levels of PEEP to animals with experimental lung injury and measured dynamic CT and post-inspiratory diaphragm activity under both spontaneous breathing and passive ventilation conditions. And so, first of all, what you see is that these are end expiratory CT images, and what you can see is that spontaneous breathing, not surprisingly, is associated with significant reduction in atelectasis. But what's important to understand is that that reduction in atelectasis is a consequence of differences in the degree of diaphragm activation during the post-inspiratory phase. So this is the peak level of diaphragm activity measured by the transdiaphragmatic pressure. And as CPAP is progressively increased, you see a progressive reduction in the degree of post-inspiratory diaphragm activity. So this suggests that applying CPAP can offload the expiratory activity of the diaphragm. And so, consistent with that, you see that at very low peak levels, there's a marked difference between the degree of atelectasis between spontaneous breathing and controlled ventilation, whereas at high peak, there's much less atelectasis, and the difference between spontaneous breathing and passive ventilation is not so marked. So what is the significance of this post-inspiratory diaphragm activity related to preventing atelectasis for the diaphragm itself? So there's this a really important concept in exercise physiology of the functional impact of eccentric contractions of the muscle. An eccentric contraction is a contraction that occurs while the muscle is lengthening. And if you're weightlifting, for example, if you really want to injure muscle and induce hypertrophy, you're going to want to use eccentric contraction. So when you're lifting the barbell, it's the concentric contraction. When you're lowering the barbell, actively preventing it from falling too quickly, that's an eccentric contraction. And in fact, the same thing is happening with the diaphragm during this post-inspiratory activity. So lung volume is falling, the dome of the diaphragm is rising, but the diaphragm remains active from a contractile standpoint. And this is an eccentric load. And we made this interesting observation in our diaphragm ultrasound study, where there was a small set of patients who had a surprising early increase in muscle thickness. And in fact, these patients with an early increase in thickness had significant impairment in muscle function. And in fact, we have some, as yet unpublished data, suggesting that they have significantly delayed liberation from the ventilator, suggesting real muscle weakness. And although it's just speculating at this point, we think that this early rise in muscle thickness actually represents the inflammatory effects as a consequence of load-induced injury. So it may well be that our acute hypoxemic respiratory failure patients who are spontaneously breathing are sustaining diaphragm injury as a consequence of these expiratory contractions. So just to sum up, I've tried to argue that PEEP is beneficial where it mitigates mechanisms of injury, and that's sort of a matter of stating the obvious. But the two groups in whom I think PEEP actually significantly mitigates mechanisms of injury are patients with significant lung recruitability and spontaneously breathing patients with acute hypoxemic respiratory failure. Now, to substantiate this claim, we really need more clinical trials, and I think the trial published earlier this week is an exciting step in that direction, and we look forward to learning more from future trials. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have